I saved a burning baby from a car, and now his family are suing me because of it. I wonder what they would have done if I didn't save their baby. After clocking out from my physical therapy job, I heard a crash across the street. A family SUV gave a giant tree a hug, completely being destroyed. Smoke was coming out and it was bound to catch fire. The woman came out the driver's seat and started screaming for her baby but was running away from her own car. Something kicked in me that sent me into fifth gear because I started running towards the car. I'm not a brave person by any means, but someone had to do something because the mom clearly wasn't. I pulled the back door open and saw a toddler strapped in her car seat. The smoke was getting thicker. The heat made my eyes water. I fumbled with the buckles, my hands shaking so bad I could barely work the release. The little girl was screaming and I kept saying, it's okay, even though nothing about this was okay. I got her out somehow. Then something exploded and there was pain in my arm and neck. Next thing I knew, I was on the ground holding this kid while strangers pulled us away from the burning car. The hospital was a blur. Third-degree burns on my right arm, shoulder, and neck. Part of my ear was gone. They said I might not get full use of my hand back, which was terrifying since I needed both hands for my job. The little girl was fine though. Her mom, Tessa, visited once. I recognized her from around town. She ran those mommy groups at the community center, had a blog about organic parenting or something. She thanked me for saving her daughter, then asked me not to talk to anyone about the accident. Said she couldn't afford bad publicity. I was pretty drugged up and just wanted to sleep, so I agreed. Things got weird after that. People started avoiding me at the grocery store. My coworker mentioned she'd heard I was milking the accident for attention. Someone keyed my car. The owner of my apartment building asked if I was involved in any legal issues when I went to renew my lease. Then I got served with papers. Tessa was suing me for defamation and emotional distress. According to her lawyer, I'd been spreading lies about saving her daughter, and it was hurting her parenting business. I sat on my bathroom floor and cried for an hour. I couldn't afford a lawyer. I could barely afford my medical bills. My dominant hand was still basically useless, and I was only working part-time. The only person who helped was Mrs. Delaney, this sweet old lady who'd seen the crash from her porch. She told me Tessa had been on her phone when she hit the tree, that I'd run into the fire while Tessa ran away. She offered to tell anyone who'd listen. I found a lawyer who'd work for almost nothing. While prepping my case, my lawyer got the footage from the wine bar down the street from the accident. It showed Tessa leaving at noon, getting in her car while video chatting on her phone. Her lawyers contacted mine about settling. They wanted me to apologize publicly and sign something saying I'd never talk about it again. The meeting was in this sterile conference room downtown. Tessa brought her husband David. He looked miserable and kept staring at his hands. Tessa scrolled through her phone while the lawyers talked. I didn't plan what happened next. I just got angry. Really, truly angry for the first time since the accident. I pulled out all the evidence my lawyer had found. The security footage, the data from her car showing she was speeding, statements from other moms who'd seen her drinking at some morning event. Tessa's face went gray. David looked like he might throw up. I told them to drop the lawsuit and pay my medical bills, or I'd make sure everyone knew the truth. They paid. I thought that was the end of it. That was 3 months ago. My hand is getting better slowly. I can work 4 days a week now. I was doing my exercises tonight when someone knocked on my door. It was David. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. I'm sorry to bother you, he said. I found something. I almost didn't let him in, but he looked so lost. He showed me screenshots from their doorbell camera going back months. Tessa stumbling to the car with Bella. Tessa backing into things. Tessa carrying drinks to the car in the morning. I installed a camera in her car last week, he said quietly. Look at this. The video was from yesterday. Tessa was swerving while Bella cried in the back seat. She yelled at her to shut up while she looked for her medicine. I need help, David said. My lawyer says I need more evidence for full custody, and I need someone who knows what she's capable of. Will you help me? I stared at David's desperate face, my scarred hand involuntarily clenching as the weight of his request hit me. The burns pulled tight, a reminder of what Tessa was capable of when she thought no one was watching. Now he was telling me it wasn't just that one time. She was actively endangering Bella daily while maintaining her perfect mother image online and at those community center meetings. You know what she's capable of, David pleaded, shifting his weight from foot to foot in my doorway. His wedding ring was gone, I noticed, just a pale band of skin where it used to be. My throat felt dry. I wanted to help. God, I wanted to help that little girl, but I'd already been through hell with Tessa once. I need to call my lawyer first, I said finally. Come in, but let me make sure this won't blow back on me legally. David nodded eagerly and stepped inside. I closed the door and reached for my phone, not knowing that Tessa had installed a doorbell camera at my apartment building last week. She'd convinced the landlord it was for security purposes after some made-up incident. I was scrolling through my contacts for my lawyer's number when David's phone exploded with notifications. His face went white as he looked at the screen. Oh God, he whispered. The first message was simple. I know where you are. Then came the photos. David at my door, taken from the hallway camera. Screenshots of our doorbell conversation. Threats about custody. About how no judge would give him Bella after this. The last video made my stomach turn. Bella asking, why did daddy leave? With a timestamp showing it was recorded 3 days ago. Not tonight. David's hands shook as more messages flooded in. Tessa had been planning this. She'd anticipated his moves, prepared responses, gathered ammunition, just like she'd done with me. I had seconds to decide. Let David stay and risk whatever Tessa would do next, or send him back to her. Either choice played right into her hands. She'd either paint me as the homewrecker who harbored her husband, or she'd have David back under her control with fresh leverage. You need to go, I said, hating myself for it. But leave the evidence files. I'll keep them safe. David's face crumpled. But she already knows you're here. The longer you stay, the worse this gets. I took the USB drive and folder he'd brought, shoving them into my kitchen drawer. Go home. Act normal. I'll figure something out. He left, shoulders slumped in defeat. I watched from my window as he got into his car, already typing on his phone, probably responding to Tessa's barrage of messages. Within minutes, my own phone started ringing. First my boss, Dr. Martinez, asking about concerning reports he'd received about my professional conduct. Then my landlord, suddenly worried about lease violations regarding overnight guests. The third call was just breathing before they hung up. My hands trembled as I opened Facebook. There it was, posted 15 minutes ago on Tessa's Blessed Mama page. Heartbroken that the person who saved my sweet Bella is now trying to break up our family. Some people just can't let go of their hero complex. Prayers appreciated during this difficult time. My address was visible in the background of one of the doorbell camera photos she'd posted. The comments were already pouring in, hundreds of them, all supporting Tessa. Then I saw one that made my blood run cold, from Catherine, my coworker at the physical therapy clinic. I always knew something was was off. The way she talks about your family is honestly creepy. Stay strong, Mama. Catherine had been distant lately, but I'd attributed it to my reduced schedule. Now I realized Tessa had been cultivating allies for months, planting seeds of doubt about me. My phone buzzed with text after text. Tomorrow's physical therapy appointments canceling. Every single one used similar wording about scheduling conflicts, like they'd been given a script. I was pacing my apartment, trying to figure out my next move, when my phone rang. Mrs. Delaney's name appeared on the screen. Dear, I'm so sorry to bother you, she whispered, and I could hear the tremor in her voice. That woman, Tessa, she just left my house. She offered to pay for my new roof if I would reconsider my witness statement about the accident. My heart sank. Mrs. Delaney, you don't have to. There's more, she interrupted, her voice even quieter. She knew things about my grandson's trouble with the police last year, things that were supposed to be sealed. She said it would be such a shame if that information got out. In the background, I heard another voice, younger, male. Grandma, who are you talking to? No one, dear, Mrs. Delaney said quickly. I have to go. I'm so sorry. The line went dead. I sank onto my couch, the reality crashing over me. This wasn't Tessa defending herself or lashing out in anger. This was a pre-planned destruction campaign she'd been preparing since the accident. Every move calculated, every response anticipated. The next morning arrived too quickly. I'd barely slept, jumping at every noise outside my apartment. My phone rang at 7 a.m. sharp. Dr. Martinez, I need you to come in for an emergency meeting, he said, his usually warm voice cold and professional. There have been some serious concerns raised about your conduct. Dr. Martinez, whatever you've heard, just come in. 9 o'clock. I arrived at the clinic to find Tessa's car in the parking lot. My stomach dropped. Through the waiting room window, I could see her sitting with Bella on her lap, filling out paperwork. A therapy consultation, the receptionist's schedule showed. The timing wasn't coincidental. Nothing with Tessa ever was. I tried to slip past to Dr. Martinez's office, but Tessa's voice rang out, pitched perfectly to carry throughout the waiting room. Oh, Bella, look! It's the lady who helped us that one time. She turned to the patient next to her, an elderly man I'd worked with for months. She's been so obsessed with us since the accident. It's actually getting concerning. Look, she even saved all these text messages. She held up her phone, showing what looked like dozens of messages. I recognized them. Innocent check-ins I'd sent about Bella's health in the days after the accident, but the way she'd screenshot them, grouped them, presented them, it looked like stalking. I just wanted to make sure Bella was okay, I said quietly, aware that everyone in the waiting room was watching. For 6 months? Tessa's voice dripped with false concern. Honey, that's not normal. David showed me the texts you've been sending him too. I hadn't texted David once, but the other patients didn't know that. Dr. Martinez appeared in the doorway. In my office, now. The meeting was worse than I'd imagined. Somehow my work email had been compromised, IT's word, and personal emails between David and me were being forwarded to the entire clinic staff. Emails I'd never written, from an account that looked like mine but wasn't. I think you need to take some voluntary leave, Dr. Martinez said, not meeting my eyes, just until this situation calms down. Dr. Martinez, I've worked here for 5 years. You know me. This isn't— Tessa has scheduled Bella for weekly therapy sessions, he interrupted, specifically requesting your usual time slots. It would be best if you weren't here. I left the clinic in a daze. In the parking lot, I pulled out my phone to check the courthouse website, some instinct telling me to look. There it was, a restraining order filed yesterday. Before David had even come to my apartment, Tessa had known he would come to me, had prepared for it. The filing claimed I'd been stalking her family for months. Desperate, I texted David directly. I need the car camera footage, please. His response came quickly. She has my phone. This is her. Stop contacting my family or I'll have you arrested. I was still staring at the message when a car pulled up next to mine, Tessa's SUV. The back door opened and Bella tumbled out, running toward me. Hi, she called out, her little voice bright. Mommy says you're sick and need help. Tessa was already filming, I realized. Her phone pointed at me as I stood there, probably looking disheveled and unstable after my sleepless night and devastating morning. Bella, honey, come back here, Tessa called, her voice syrupy sweet. We don't want to bother her. But Bella had already reached me, wrapping her small arms around my legs. Something felt wrong. There was a strange bulge under her jacket. Mommy put something here, Bella whispered, patting her chest. She said it's a game. A wire. Tessa had put a wire on her own daughter. I gently detached Bella and walked her back to Tessa, keeping my face neutral despite my horror. Tessa smiled at me over Bella's head, the expression sharp as a knife. Thanks for being so understanding about the therapy schedule change, she said loudly. I know how hard it must be, losing your job because of your issues. She drove away, leaving me standing in the parking lot. Within an hour, a video appeared on our neighborhood Facebook group, Local Hero or Unstable Stalker. The security camera angle suggested someone had access to the clinic's internal cameras. The video showed me looking disheveled, answering my car door to an innocent child, while the mother filmed in self-defense. The comments were brutal. People I'd lived near for years were calling for me to be evicted, to be investigated, to be kept away from children. My lawyer called that afternoon. She hired Morrison, he said without preamble. The same lawyer who got that hammered driver acquitted last year. She's been meeting with him for months, long before she filed anything. So what do I do? Honestly, you might want to consider moving, starting fresh somewhere. I'm not running, I said. I didn't do anything wrong. That's not how it looks. That evening, David texted from a different number. Can't send the evidence. She convinced my mother I'm having a breakdown and you're manipulating me. I'm sorry. I drove to Mrs. Delaney's house against my better judgment. She answered the door looking frightened but let me in. I can't change my statement, she said immediately. I can't risk my grandson's future. I'm not asking you to, I said. I need someone to know the truth. I showed her my burns, still red and tight after months of healing. I got these pulling Bella out, and now Tessa's destroying my life because I know what really happened. Mrs. Delaney's eyes filled with tears. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. We talked for a few minutes before I left. I didn't notice the car parked across the street or the long lens camera pointed at Mrs. Delaney's front door. But within an hour, Tessa's lawyer had the photos, evidence of witness tampering to add to the restraining order. I sat in my apartment that night, surrounded by the evidence David had left. Videos of Tessa driving hammered with Bella. Documentation of a pattern going back years. All useless now. All twisted into proof of my obsession. The truth didn't matter anymore. Tessa had turned my act of heroism into something sick, had made me the villain in her story. She'd anticipated every move, countered every truth with a prettier lie. I looked at my burned hand, at the scars that would never fully fade. I'd saved her daughter and lost everything for it. But Tessa had made one mistake. She'd shown me exactly how she operated, how she manipulated perception, controlled narrative, destroyed threats. If I was going to to survive this, I'd have to play her game, turn her weapons against her. It went against everything I believed in, but what choice did I have? I opened my laptop and created a new social media account. If Tessa wanted a war of public perception, I'd give her one. I just had to be smarter about it than she expected. The game was just beginning. The burn support group met every Tuesday evening in the basement of St. Mary's Hospital. I'd been attending for 2 months, finding comfort in sharing my recovery journey with others who understood the physical and emotional pain. That Tuesday, a new member joined us, a woman with perfectly styled blonde hair who introduced herself as Teresa. My blood went cold. Tessa had infiltrated my safe space. She tearfully shared how guilty she felt about a recent accident, using phrases I recognized from my own shares in previous meetings. The group leader, Nathan, welcomed her warmly while I sat frozen, watching her performance. When she caught my eye, her lips twitched in the slightest smile. After the meeting, several members approached me. "Are you sure she was hammered that day?" Joni asked gently. Trauma can distort our memories sometimes. The seed of doubt had been planted. By the following week, half the group was questioning whether I'd misremembered the accident. Tessa had turned my support system against me with surgical precision. 3 days later, I discovered something that shook me to my core. While organizing papers for my disability claim, I found a journal entry from my hospital stay that I didn't remember writing. Maybe I caused the accident somehow. Maybe I distracted her. The handwriting was perfect, despite my burned hand being bandaged and immobilized at the time. My hands shook as I examined the paper. The ink, the pressure, even the way I formed certain letters, all perfectly mimicked. Someone had been in my hospital room, studying my handwriting, planning this moment months in advance. The daycare incident happened the next morning. I was walking to my physical therapy appointment when a police car pulled up. Bella's daycare teacher had reported seeing me lurking outside the playground fence. The officer was apologetic but firm. I needed to stay away from the daycare. I wasn't lurking, I explained desperately. The physical therapy clinic is right there. I walk past every day. The officer nodded sympathetically, but still took my information. Later, I discovered the teacher's husband worked at Tessa's marketing company. Another calculated move in her chess game. That evening, a voicemail arrived from an unknown number. Tessa's concerned voice filled my apartment. "I'm worried about you. Bella keeps saying I miss the person who saved me over and over. She won't stop. Listen." The recording continued with Bella's voice repeating the phrase mechanically, edited to sound increasingly distorted and threatening. My skin crawled. She'd coached her own daughter to create this disturbing audio, then twisted it into something sinister. The restraining order hearing arrived faster than expected. Tessa's lawyer, Morrison, presented my social media activity like evidence of obsession. Screenshots of news articles about hammered driving I'd liked, searches for car seat safety. Normal interests for someone recovering from saving a child from a burning car, but presented in a different light. They looked damning. "My client simply wants to move forward with her life," Morrison said smoothly, "but the defendant's fixation makes that impossible." I watched helplessly as the temporary order was granted. 72 hours until the permanent hearing that could end my career. Physical therapists couldn't work with restraining orders on their records. Desperate times called for desperate measures. Using a fake profile with a deceased patient's name, a violation that made me sick, I accessed Tessa's private mommy group. What I found there turned my stomach. She'd been documenting her stalker situation for months, crafting an elaborate narrative with timestamps that predated the accident. According to her posts, I'd been watching her family long before that day. She'd even created fake encounters, describing times I'd approached her at the grocery store or followed her car. The group members offered support and advice, completely unaware they were participating in a fiction. But I noticed something interesting. Her writing style was inconsistent, sometimes formal, sometimes casual. Different posts used different phrases, different emotional tones, like multiple people were managing the account. My discovery was short-lived. Within hours of joining, Tessa had identified me. "Found the stalker," she posted, along with screenshots of my fake profile. She'd recognized my typing patterns, the way I structured sentences. Even using a fake name, she knew it was me. The permanent hearing loomed, and Dr. Martinez agreed to testify. My heart broke as my mentor of 5 years took a stand. "She seemed fixated on the accident," he said, not meeting my eyes. Brought it up frequently. Compared other patients' injuries to her own experience saving the child. Every normal processing behavior twisted into evidence of obsession. I wanted to scream that talking about trauma was healthy, that comparing experiences was natural, but my lawyer advised silence. That night, alone in my apartment, the pieces clicked together. Tessa had found my deepest fear and weaponized it. During intake at the physical therapy clinic, I'd mentioned my mother's struggles with mental health, how I'd grown up terrified of being seen as unstable like her. That information was in my employee file. Tessa had accessed it somehow, learned my vulnerabilities, and crafted her attack accordingly. Morrison made an offer through my lawyer. Sign an NDA, agree to move out of state within 30 days, and everything would disappear. No restraining order, no public humiliation, just quietly vanish. I refused. The next morning, an eviction notice appeared on my door. Safety concerns regarding other tenants. The landlord wouldn't meet my eyes when I tried to talk to him. Everything changed when David reached out through a burner phone. We met in a parking garage downtown, both checking constantly for surveillance. He looked haggard, aged years and weeks. "I found something," he whispered, pulling out a folder. "Tessa's first DUI. It was expunged because her father knew the judge, but I have the records. The date was wrong. This DUI happened 2 years before our accident, not after." The victim was listed as Jennifer Huang, Tessa's college roommate. "She transferred schools right after," David continued. "Tessa's father paid for her silence. There's a pattern here. Every victory I thought I'd achieved had been anticipated." Tessa wanted the restraining order hearing. She needed the legal precedent for something bigger. The bills from Morrison's firm showed meetings dating back to before the accident. She'd been preparing for someone to challenge her eventually. Mrs. Delaney called me crying 2 days later. Tessa had detailed information about her grandson's sealed juvenile record, possession charge from when he was 16, information that required illegal access to obtain. "I can't testify," Mrs. Delaney sobbed. "I can't risk his future. I'm so sorry." Without her witness statement, I had no corroboration of Tessa's negligence. The security footage from the wine bar had mysteriously corrupted. Every piece of evidence was disappearing or being discredited. I started recording everything, adopting Tessa's own tactics. Phone in my pocket during every interaction, security cameras in my apartment, dash cam in my car. If she wanted surveillance warfare, I'd give it to her. The grocery store confrontation was calculated. I spotted Tessa shopping with Ella and loudly asked about her drinking, ensuring security cameras captured her response. She grabbed my burned arm hard enough to leave bruises, snarling threats about destroying me. But the footage showed both angles, her assault and my provocation. Neither of us looked good, which is when David's mother filed for emergency custody of Bella herself, horrified by the grocery store incident that had gone viral in our community Facebook group. Suddenly, Tessa and I were forced into an uncomfortable alliance. We sat across from each other in the mediator's office, both realizing we destroyed each other so thoroughly that neither of us might keep Bella. The mediator, I noticed, wore a sorority pin that matched one in Tessa's old photos. Even this supposedly neutral party was compromised. Fighting on two fronts drained my savings rapidly. Legal fees, lost income from reduced work, medical bills still coming in. I watched my bank account dwindle while Tessa seemed to have endless resources. During mediation, I presented David's dashcam footage showing Tessa swerving dangerously while Bella screamed in the back seat. Morrison immediately challenged the chain of custody, suggesting the footage could be edited or tampered with. The judge's ruling felt like a physical blow. Due to the restraining order, I couldn't present evidence in the custody case. My testimony was inadmissible. I was effectively silenced while Tessa could speak freely. I spent that night surrounded by useless evidence. Videos, documents, witness statements, all worthless now. My career was over, savings depleted, reputation destroyed. I'd played Tessa's game and lost spectacularly. She visited my apartment the next day, claiming victory. But as she gloated, she revealed something horrifying. "You're not special," she said, examining her manicured nails. "Jennifer thought she could expose me too. She kept pushing about that little fender bender in college. Now she's getting the help she needs at a lovely facility upstate." My blood ran cold. "You had her committed?" "She had herself committed," Tessa corrected with a smile. "After a series of unfortunate mental health episodes. Paranoia, they said. Delusions about being stalked and framed. Sad, really." The pattern was clear now. Anyone who challenged Tessa ended up destroyed, discredited, or institutionalized. I was just the latest in a line of victims. That night, I made a choice that violated my principles. I posted Tessa's confession online, the recording from my hidden phone. My lawyer called within minutes. Panicked. The recording was illegal, obtained without consent. I'd violated the restraining order by being within 50 feet of her. The post went viral locally before being taken down. But instead of vindication, I faced arrest. Tessa's former roommate's family sued me for exploiting their daughter's tragedy. The narrative shifted again. I was the unstable one harassing a poor mother. Tessa appeared on local news, Bella in her arms, tears streaming down her face as she described how my vendetta was traumatizing her daughter. Bella cried on cue, clinging to her mother. The performance was flawless. David called from a burner phone, hysterical. His mother had suffered a fall after meeting with Tessa. She was hospitalized with injuries that didn't match her story of tripping on the stairs. The bruise pattern suggested something else entirely. To prove Tessa's pattern of behavior, I had to expose my own vulnerabilities. In a desperate blog post, I revealed my mother's psychiatric history, explaining how I recognized Tessa's manipulation tactics because I'd seen similar behavior growing up. The response was swift and brutal. Now I was the one with genetic instability. A private investigator I'd hired with my last savings found Jennifer Huang's medical records from her voluntary commitment. They showed injuries consistent with burns, labeled as self-inflicted, but obtaining the records illegally tainted them as evidence. Worse, my DNA was on the envelope when police traced it back. The permanent restraining order hearing was moved up suddenly. My lawyer was scheduled for emergency surgery, a procedure that became urgently necessary after Tessa's team learned about the court date. I'd have to represent myself or accept a public defender. The truth crystallized with horrible clarity. Tessa's goal wasn't just silencing me. She was creating a pattern of behavior that would justify having me involuntarily committed. Every action I took in self-defense became evidence of escalating instability. But I wasn't her real target. She needed me discredited because I was David's only ally. When she framed him for his mother's accident, he'd have no one to turn to, no one who'd believe him. The discovery that changed everything came from an unexpected source. While researching insulin interactions for a client, I found Tessa's search history cached on a medical website. She'd been researching insulin dosages, specifically how to induce hypoglycemic coma in elderly patients. David's mother was diabetic. I faced an impossible choice. Save myself legally by staying quiet, or save David and Bella by violating the restraining order to warn him. There was no question what I had to do. I met David at a park, knowing police would come. I handed him everything. The search history, the medical records, the pattern of victims. He took it all with shaking hands as sirens wailed in the distance. "She's going to frame you for your mother's poisoning," I said quickly. "Get to your mother. Document everything. Don't let Tessa near her." Police cars surrounded us. An officer I recognized from the daycare incident approached with handcuffs. Tessa's friend live-streamed from across the park, narrating my mental breakdown and violation of the protective order. From my jail cell, I watched the news report. The anchor, reading from what was obviously a prepared statement, described my escalating pattern of harassment and dangerous obsession with a local family. They showed my mugshot next to a photo of Tessa and Bella looking angelic. Tessa visited me in jail, her smile triumphant. "David was arrested this morning," she said conversationally. "They found insulin in his car, his fingerprints on the vial. His mother might not make it. You planted it," I said flatly. "Prove it," she replied. "Oh wait, you can't. You're a mentally unstable stalker who's obsessed with my family. No one will ever believe you." She leaned closer to the glass. "I offered you a way out. You should have taken it." With both David and me jailed, Tessa had unchallenged custody of Bella and control of the family finances. She'd won completely, devastatingly. The woman who'd endangered her child now had total control over her. But even perfect plans have flaws, and Tessa had made one crucial mistake. She'd created too many victims. Jennifer Huang wasn't in a psychiatric facility. She was hiding in another state, terrified but alive, and my public defender had just found her. The burn support group leader called my lawyer, guilt-ridden. Tessa had threatened to expose his prescription med addiction relapse if he didn't cooperate with discrediting me. He'd kept recordings of their conversations. Mrs. Delaney's conscience finally won. She admitted to accepting money for a new roof, which Tessa had carefully documented to destroy her credibility. But she also had the original threatening messages Tessa had sent about her grandson. From my cell, I used precious phone time to do what Tessa had taught me, manipulate public perception. Using a contraband smartphone, I analyzed Tessa's mommy blog posts, finding inconsistencies in her timeline, different writing styles, recycled content from grieving mothers' posts. Other mothers in her group started comparing notes. The advice Tessa gave was word for word identical across different conversations. emotions. Her emotional responses followed scripts. The perfect mother facade was cracking. Then came the revelation that shifted everything. A mother named Sarah realized Tessa had stolen entire posts about child loss from her blog, written after her son died of cancer. Tessa had attended the funeral for support, but had actually been gathering material for her false persona. The story exploded online. Stolen grief began trending locally. News outlets picked up the narrative of a mother exploiting others' tragedies. Public opinion shifted slightly, but the damage to Bella was severe. Daycare reports showed the little girl exhibiting signs of severe anxiety and regression. She'd stopped speaking in full sentences, had accidents after being potty trained for a year. The trauma of her parents' war was destroying her. I faced another impossible choice. David's lawyer had dashcam footage from the day of his mother's poisoning, showing Bella in the car while Tessa stopped at the hospital. The child's terror was evident, screaming, "Mommy, please stop," over and over while Tessa coldly continued her mission. Releasing it would prove Tessa's guilt, but traumatize Bella further by making her trauma public. I'd sworn to protect that little girl, but protecting her might mean letting her mother win. I released the footage. The public response was immediate and horrified, but Tessa, ever prepared, hired experts to claim the video was deepfaked. The same expert who testified in Jennifer's case years ago, creating doubt about digital evidence. Every piece of proof I'd gathered became questionable. Tessa's preparation included ways to discredit each type of evidence. She'd studied forensic countermeasures, prepared for every contingency. David's mother died in the hospital. Unaliving charges were filed against him while Tessa played the grieving daughter-in-law perfectly. She wore black to court, held Bella's hand, wiped away precisely timed tears. The final custody hearing was scheduled with Judge Patricia Winters, known for favoring stable parents. Tessa's campaign had succeeded completely. She looked like the only stable option while David faced unaliving charges and I faced harassment charges. As I sat in my cell awaiting transport to the courthouse, I realized the terrifying truth. Tessa hadn't just won. She'd created a playbook for destroying anyone who challenged her. And somewhere out there, another victim was probably just beginning to see through her perfect mother act, not knowing the hell that awaited them. The war wasn't over, but the battlefield had shifted to courtrooms and custody hearings, where truth mattered less than perception, and the best liar won. The stolen grief story spread through our community like wildfire. A mother named Sarah, whose son had died of cancer 2 years ago, discovered Tessa had lifted entire blog posts about child loss word for word. Sarah's raw, authentic grief had been repurposed for Tessa's fake persona. Sarah confronted Tessa at the community center during a mommy group meeting. I watched the security footage later from my cell, Sarah holding printed screenshots, her hands shaking as she demanded answers. Tessa maintained her composure, claiming it was a misunderstanding, that grief made people see connections that weren't there. But other mothers started checking their own interactions with Tessa. The patterns were undeniable. Identical phrases across different conversations, recycled advice, even emotional responses that followed predictable scripts. The perfect mother image was fracturing. Local news picked up the story, but Tessa was ready. She appeared on morning segments looking haggard but dignified, explaining how her own grief over the harassment had led to unconscious mirroring of others' pain. She positioned herself as a victim of her own empathy. Meanwhile, Bella's condition worsened. Daycare reports documented severe regression, a bright verbal child reduced to monosyllables and constant anxiety. She drew the same picture repeatedly, cars and fires and stick figures crying. I made the hardest decision of my life from that jail cell. David's lawyer had dashcam footage from the day his mother was poisoned. It showed Bella in the back seat while Tessa made an unexplained stop at the hospital. The child's terror was heartbreaking, screaming, "Mommy, please stop," while Tessa coldly continued driving. Releasing it would destroy Bella's privacy, make her trauma public consumption, but keeping it secret meant Tessa would maintain custody, while David faced unaliving charges. I thought of that little girl I'd pulled from the burning car and made my choice. The footage went viral within hours. Public opinion shifted dramatically as people watched a 3-year-old beg her mother to stop whatever she was doing. But Tessa had anticipated this too. She hired digital forensics experts, the same ones from Jennifer's case years ago, to testify the video showed signs of manipulation. They pointed to compression artifacts, questioned the chain of custody, created enough doubt to muddy the waters. Every piece of evidence I'd gathered became suspect. Tessa had studied forensic countermeasures, prepared responses for each type of proof. She'd turned the entire concept of evidence into something questionable. David's mother died 3 days later. The unaliving charges against David were upgraded while Tessa played the grieving daughter-in-law perfectly. She wore designer black to court, held Bella's hand with precisely calculated gentleness, dabbed at her eyes with tissues she never actually needed. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following week. Judge Patricia Winters presided, known for favoring stable households above all else. After months of mutual destruction, Tessa appeared to be the only stable option. The courtroom was packed that Tuesday morning. I sat in shackles next to my public defender while David sat across the aisle with his own legal team. Tessa entered with Bella, who clung to her mother with the desperate grip of a child who'd learned that letting go meant chaos. Both Tessa and I showed the wear of our war. My burn scars seemed more prominent under the harsh courtroom lights. Tessa's perfect facade showed cracks, her smile too sharp, her movements too calculated, a manic energy barely contained beneath her polished surface. Morrison stood to present Tessa's case, but before he could begin, Bella broke free and ran, not to her mother or father, but to me. She wrapped her arms around my legs, sobbing, "Help me like you did before." The courtroom erupted. Security moved to intervene while Tessa's mask finally slipped completely. She lunged forward, yanking Bella away with enough force to make the child cry out. Every phone in the room captured the moment, but the footage showed both angles. Tessa's violence, yes, but also me reaching for Bella first. Another violation of the restraining order. Morrison quickly spun it as a traumatized child confused by an unstable woman's continued interference. Judge Winters called a recess. During the break, something unexpected happened. David's mother's nurse, Catherine Chen, approached the prosecutor. She'd been carrying guilt for weeks and couldn't stay silent anymore. She'd seen Tessa near the medical supply closet the day of the poisoning, had watched her studying insulin dosages on her phone, had noticed Tessa's presence didn't match visitor logs. But Catherine was a single mother with 2 kids, terrified of Tessa's reach. I watched Catherine wrestle with her conscience in real time. Testifying would make her a target. Staying silent meant David would go to prison for a unaliving he didn't commit. She looked at Bella, still crying in Tessa's too tight grip, and made her choice. I can't can't testify, Catherine whispered to the prosecutor. I have kids. I'm sorry. She fled the courthouse, another witness neutralized by fear. The hearing resumed with both sides presenting their evidence. Morrison painted me as dangerously obsessed, Tessa as a mother trying to protect her child. David's lawyer struggled to defend against unaliving charges while fighting for custody. Then Tessa made her first real mistake in months. When Bella wouldn't stop crying, Tessa's composure cracked. She hissed at her daughter to shut up, directly into the court reporter's microphone. The words hung in the air. Judge Winter's expression shifted subtly. For the first time, she was seeing past Tessa's performance. My public defender seized the moment, presenting a pattern of behavior that couldn't all be fabricated. The stolen grief posts, the multiple witnesses afraid to testify, the suspicious timing of David's mother's death. Individual pieces might be questionable, but the pattern was clear. Morrison countered brilliantly, suggesting I'd orchestrated everything, that I'd manipulated evidence, coached witnesses, created an elaborate conspiracy because I couldn't accept being seen as unstable. He painted a picture of delusion so convincing I almost believed it myself. The judge deliberated for 3 hours. When she returned, her decision satisfied no one. Tessa would maintain custody but under strict supervision. Weekly social worker visits, mandatory parenting classes, substance and alcohol testing. Any violation would trigger immediate review. David's unaliving charges would proceed to trial, but he'd be released on bail. He could have supervised visits with Bella twice a week. As for me, the judge offered a choice. Plead guilty to violating the restraining order and accept time served plus probation, or face trial with the possibility of years in prison. I took the plea. 6 months of jail time already served, 2 years probation, and a permanent restraining order keeping me 500 feet from Tessa and Bella. My physical therapy license was suspended pending review. My career was effectively over, but I provided one final statement about Bella's safety that would be entered into the permanent record. Every incident, every piece of evidence, every witness too frightened to speak. It wouldn't convict Tessa, but it would create a paper trail if anything happened to Bella. The community remained divided. Support groups formed on both sides. Those who believed Tessa was a victim of harassment, and those who saw through her facade. The truth had become irrelevant, replaced by competing narratives. I was released that evening. My apartment was gone, my belongings in storage. Dr. Martinez had officially terminated my employment. My bank account held just enough for a cheap motel room, but something had changed. Other victims began reaching out. Not publicly, they'd learned from my mistakes, but quietly, carefully, they shared their stories. A woman from Tessa's college, a former business partner, a neighbor from her first apartment, all with similar patterns of destruction. We couldn't fight Tessa directly. The legal system had proven that, but we could watch, document, wait, because Tessa's need for control would eventually create another victim, and next time, we'd be ready. David found me at the motel that night. He looked broken but determined. The unaliving trial would begin in 3 months. His lawyer was cautiously optimistic. Catherine Chen had agreed to provide a written statement, if not testimony. She's already grooming her next target, David said quietly. Another single mom in the support group, recently divorced, vulnerable. Tessa's been love-bombing her with support and advice. We sat in silence, both thinking of Bella. The little girl I'd saved was now trapped with the person who'd endangered her. The system meant to protect her had failed completely. 3 weeks later, Bella was hospitalized. Official cause, accidental ingestion of sleeping medication. Tessa claimed Bella had gotten into her purse while she was distracted. The social worker noted concerns, but couldn't prove intent. I stood outside the hospital, exactly 500 feet away, watching Tessa perform for the cameras. The concerned mother, the tragic victim of circumstances. She'd learned to cry on cue now, real tears that meant nothing. Inside, Bella lay in a bed too big for her small body, machines monitoring her vital signs. The child I'd pulled from flames was drowning in a different kind of fire, and this time, I couldn't save her. The war was over. We'd destroyed each other so completely that the truth no longer mattered. Tessa kept custody through manipulation and fear. David faced trial for a unaliving he didn't commit. I lost everything trying to protect a child who remained in danger. But wars leave survivors, and survivors remember. Every document was preserved, every witness statement recorded, every piece of evidence digitized and scattered across secure servers. Someday, Tessa would push too far. Her need for control would override her caution. And when that happened, an army of survivors would be waiting with the truth she'd worked so hard to bury. For now, I found work as a grocery store clerk 3 towns over. My burned hand still ached during long shifts, but it was honest work. I attended therapy, rebuilt my life slowly, learned to live with the knowledge that sometimes the villain wins, and every night I dreamed of flames and a little girl's screams, wondering if saving her that day had ultimately condemned her to something worse.